Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. And yeah, in this video we are going to actually I am going to give my final thoughts on Dragon Age the Veilguard. I finished the game last night. I finished my first playthrough on live stream. I will put that in the description below in case if you guys want to see the finale portion of it. I'll do that. But after the live stream, I did a couple of playthroughs off stream. I revisited some old decisions. I went back to some old save files and took different decisions and got some different endings because I just wanted to see how much does the story differ or change from ending to ending, so I can kind of like base my thoughts around that as well. So I'm going to break this video into two major parts. One is I'm going to give a review, like kind of like a review uh, spoiler free without any spoilers, so that people who have not played the game yet or thinking to play the game but do not want to run into spoilers can kind of like get an idea of what the game is like. And then afterwards I will I will drop in some spoilers because then I can kind of like give some reasoning behind some decisions as to why I think the game is the way it is, right? um so yeah. um so first, into the spoiler free review, what I can say about the game is that so there have been a section of people who've been saying the game is terrible, namely the majority of content creators. And then there are people, namely the game journalism and the game journalism sites, which have been calling this game an astounding success, game of the year material, blah blah blah, right? So what I can say is this game is smack deep in the middle. Maybe not so much in the middle, but it's not really a terrible game, right? But it's not really an awesome game at the same time. Okay. I will not give this game an 8 or a 9, even like have some of these websites have been giving it. It is not worthy of that, and but it is not a terrible game as at the same time. I would give this somewhere like a 6, 6.5, maybe a 7, but if you're being too nice, but not a 5, you're not being too harsh. 6, 6.5, I think that's where the game is. Now, just now I'm going to do my best to keep this spoiler free as possible. So let me say, let's take some of the let's look into some of the considerations in this game. So if you look at the combat, overall combat, I think the combat is quite fast paced compared to that of Dragon Age Inquisition or some of the previous Dragon Age games. So it is quite nice. I would say the combat is quite nice and pleasing. It's one of the best things in the game, the overall combat system. And the party size is down from 4 to 3, so it's less complex now. The skill tree is less complex as well. It's not too complicated compared to the previous Dragon Age game, so it's easy for new players to get a hang of it as well. Exploration is kind of dimmed down as well. It is not as extensive as that of Dragon Age Inquisition, with small sandboxes for areas. It's not too complex of an exploratory system. It's just minor sandbox areas with variable pathing. It's nothing too big. Hidden chests to be found around the corners and stuff like that. That's all, right? As far as the questing goes, I would say the story quests are by far the best quests. Usually in games with side questing and companion questing involved, you would find side questing, companion questing interesting as well. But this one, in this Dragon Age, I would say the story quests by far are the best. It is where the game kind of like excels because it has the tone it sets in the story quests. In some of the story quests, given some of the big battles, I will not name any. It peaks quite high, right? Like the urgency, the suspense, it's quite nice. It peaks and then it dips really fast because in between story quests, when you do side questing, the companion questing, some of them are all right, some of them are good, some side quests are good, but the majority of companion quests are quite cringy, I would say. That's when the dips, you feel you lose interest in the overall game, and you forget about what the good stuff of the game were about all of a sudden until you play the next story mission. Now, not all the companion quests are bad, right? It's not that bad as far as I can say. The companions are quite well all rounded. Um, if we look at if we ignore as to who the companions are, like if we just look at from the base, right? We have a mage assassin, we have an Inquisition scout, a dwarf, we have an elf warden, we have a Tevinter mage, we have a fire breathing dragon hunting Kunari, we have an elven historian, we have a necromancer. That, just knowing that much is enough to say that, oh shit, that's a good companion list. But once you do each of the companion quests, not all of them, but some of them, that's when it gets real cringy, because in a lot of these quests, and that's really because of the dialogue options majority. The dialogue is very, very modern, right? It is a modern tone. Like, the tone of the dialogue is very modern. Rook himself, your character itself, feels like very like a therapist at sometimes. No matter how much of a jackass you try to be in and harsh in some of your responses, you end up saying something very diplomatic. A lot of your companions are like, a lot of the decisions, a lot of the overall tone is family friendly, I would say. It's not serious at all. It's not Dragon Age serious, at least, if that even means anything. Some of the companions are very inclusivity focused, diversity focused, and that is where, it loses the objective of the game. It's focusing on things that are not part of the game anymore. um, like, we focus on gender identity and things like that, and all of a sudden it's like we're playing something else, right? It's not a Dragon Age game, it's not a fantasy game, because Dragon Age has a different set of social issues, like the elven, the dwarves, the mages. It has a different structure, social issues. We are forcing modern day social issues in a world that has accepted all sorts of genders already. We're just projecting our issues in there, which makes the entire experience quite cringy. So thereby dialogue options become cringy, the tone. Some of these characters are not supposed to be funny, but they force them to be funny, and you lose a lot of interest in that. uh then the next issue is with continuity. So early so as we know, Dragon Age, they had the Dragon Age Keep, right, which was a service for folks to to maintain a world state from the previous three games, so that they could you know at some point import that save into some of the superseding games, and then play with that world state, right? So that is the the bread and butter of BioWare games, of Mass Effect and Dragon Age. That is what made those games stand out, which is every minor decision will matter in either in this game, somewhere down the line towards the end of the story, or maybe in the next game, right? the the smallest decisions can carry a huge weight across the entire game series, right? And this unlocks certain events, locks out certain events, and that's what made Dragon Age more interesting, right? So this tapestry we had so there was a service called Dragon Age Keep, so you could keep this world state from the three games. So they remove support for Keep in Veilguard, so you could no longer use this state in Veilguard and carry on your story from that point onwards. So instead, Veilguard lets you do a bunch of options from Inquisition, select some predefined options from Inquisition, and then carry on from there. So the previous continuity from the first two games is no longer considered. This just means that the devs are lazy, right? We no longer want to look into this. I understand the complexity that's involved in keeping all these decisions, maintaining the world state. I understand it, but if but this is one of the core features. This is what made the games really stand out. So for them to like say we don't want to do it anymore, just I mean, it just shows that they are not bothered in improving, in keeping the game, true to its nature, right? So a lot of things are left open ended. There's no closure to some of the previous events that happened in some of the previous two games, leading up to the third game, and now leading up to the fourth. So the events of Inquisition and the Inquisitor, so those have closure because the devs only decided to bring the big portion of Inquisition in here because, given Solus, the Inquisitor is heavily, the Inquisitor is heavily connected to the story of this game as well. So that's good to see. But there was one big flaw which now this is not a spoiler because we all knew about this. So obviously the Inquisitor shows up, right? Um, Obviously at some point the Inquisitor and Solus has to meet each other. That's a given, right? We all knew that was happening. Now, as we remember in the Trespasser DLC of the third game, the Inquisitor lost his hand. He lost his hand. His hand got chopped off. Solus chopped his hand off to prevent the Fade Tear from killing him. Right? That happened. Afterwards, now in this game, he has his hand back. His hand is grown back somehow. I'm not sure how. He's wearing it's covered, right? So they have not explained it. There's no mention of it when Solus and him meet. They don't talk about it, right? There's not even because they meet for a very brief moment, but they don't mention or talk about it. So we don't know how he got his hand back. So there's no explanation there. Suddenly he has his hand back, and it's just lazy development, right? How could you miss something big, right? It happened to a protagonist. How did he get the hand back, right? It's like okay, it might not be big to some people, but I found that confusing as hell when I played the game. So there's continuity issues like that. So I'm not sure what to expect. So I'm not sure what to expect in the games to come if they are going to lose, if they're going to remove continuity as a whole. So do the decisions of Inquisition no longer matter if you're going to get a fifth game? Do we just need to focus on Veilguard? Is there any point in playing the previous games anymore? I don't know. Okay, so the next is character design. Yeah, character design has been a big issue in this game. Uh, I mean, we don't need to talk about. I mean, like, let's start with the Kunari. Like, Kunari are just ugly as hell in this game, right? You can make them look decent to an extent, but you have to put a lot of effort, right? Like, so this is the Kunari in Dragon Age 2. I have no reason why they wanted to. Like, we have no idea why they wanted to like ditch this design and go for something like this, right? Because it doesn't make any sense. It's just a human model with some horns on it, with a forehead the size of a football pitch. Like, their rationale behind this just makes no sense. Obviously, this is related to someone saying we can't. I don't. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know what's their rationale. I don't know if it's an inclusivity thing or somewhere down the line, but this just ruins an entire like. Dude, I don't know, man. This like I wanted to play a Kunari, and it's so difficult to make it look. So this is the Kunari I ended up making. Right, is the closest I could get to like a menacing looking Kunari, like a cool looking Kunari. So, but what I don't understand is like the evil Kunari in this game, they do have that menacing look, but not the Kunari you can create. Like I don't understand why they did that. Like it's just super confusing, right? So we're just stuck with that. So we're stuck with character designs like this. If we take elves as well, right? So these are the previous looking elves. I had an issue. Like now, these are the previous elves. This is Sarah from Dragon Age 2. Solus, everyone knows. This is Fenris from Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age 2. Sorry, Sarah from Dragon Age Inquisition. Fenris from Dragon Age 2. And this is Solus. So look, their ears are quite pointy and protruding, but they're designed in such a way where you don't exactly notice the ears standing out much. Now, a lot of characters in Dragon Age Veilguard, I've noticed the elves, they have long protruding ears. I don't know if it's because their hairstyles or whatever, their hair is kept back, but the majority of them, it looks like they have bat wings or something on the side of the ears, and it looks ugly at times. It's not a big thing, but it just looks weird. So, yeah, I mean, that's all I can say. If you can look past the DEI stuff, if you have a strong stomach to not be bothered by this stuff, you can enjoy the game to an extent. New players and old players, that's what I would say. So it doesn't matter if you um, so you can play this if you stick to the story missions. If you stick to the main story missions, I would say I think you could enjoy a proper Dragon Age experience. If you try to do some of the companion quests, that's when you're going to run into a lot of this DAI inclusivity force stuff, which will ruin your experience. You can include you can ignore them, but you know that not doing a companion quest is going to bode is not going to bode well for your overall story. So they are essentially forcing us to try and do this because otherwise you're going to end up getting bad endings for your characters. Your characters might die here and there. We know in Bioware games it matters towards the end portion of the game, right? The bond level with your characters and stuff like that. So like, yeah, if you just need to like kind of power through it, so that is what it is. So that's what I'm saying. The game is definitely like a 6.5, 7. Maybe if you're nice enough, 7. Yeah, 6 to 7, somewhere in there. It's not a really amazing game because the game has its peaks and then it just dips really fast. Now, that's all I'm going to say in terms of spoiler free. Now, if we add the spoilers to it, now if you're going to talk a little bit more about the game, so spoiler alert. Now we're going to talk about spoilers. Uh, the game did have some good moments, but it had its worst moments as well. So, looking back into the um, continuity, right? There were some recurring characters from previous Dragon Age games that came in here. So everyone knows Morrigan. Morrigan was already revealed. She was shown in the trailer. So her character had changed quite a bit. She was still somewhat the same. She was Inquisition. She was very authoritative. She was affirmative. She was like when she speaks, she spoke her mind. If she's insulting, she's insulting. She can be mean sometimes, but she's like very sly with her words. And we all know how Morgan is. In this, I don't know for whatever reason, she's like inclined to agree with your character regardless. For I don't know, it just feels it does not feel like Morgan at all. She's like, yeah, okay, if you say so, fine, let's try it. Like I don't get it. Like her character, like we don't need to talk about design, the obvious stuff. We we know what the obvious flaws in a character designer. A lot of people are saying that she does not look good enough anymore. Must be the it doesn't matter, right? Another character which kind of made their appearance back is Isabella. For those of you who remember from Dragon Age 2, yes, they changed the design again. She looks weird now, of course, but even her character had changed quite a bit. So she was so she's a pirate, okay. So she's an unapologetic. She does not. She's very carefree, you know. Um, so she's that kind of a person, right? So there's some dialogue options that occur in the middle of a game in Tash's companion quest. You know, Tash, she's on this whole non-binary dis- path quest to discover herself. You know, stuff like that. An entire quest line, which makes no, which kind of like ruins, which kind of like feels very off, right? So like in that character, Isabella's like very apologetic. She's saying sorry, blah blah blah. You know, it doesn't feel like Isabella. So yeah, it just feels weird. Like these two characters come back and they're no longer the same characters that we know. In addition to that, so if we go back, so Tasha's entire quest line was she had a good Kunari quest line as well. If they had elaborated a bit more on that, because it would have been nice to learn more about the Kunari, more about the relationship between dragons and Kunari and blah blah blah. But instead, there's an entire section to focusing her coming out to her mother, she being non-binary, and there's a lot of passive conversations with other characters, like saying that she's talking about pronouns and things like that, which feels so off from this fantasy universe. In addition to that, they try to make Balara funny at times. You know, from a serious tone, they go to a comical tone in some of the companion missions, in some of the character dialogue. They put like funny background music, and they try to make her funny, which does not suit the situation, right? Because we are in this war against the gods. People are dying. We need to do some shit. Oh, and here we are. Let's have some tea. So let's have some snacks. Chat about the latest gossip and blah blah blah. It just feels so off, man. It's just not natural. It's not very organic. Even Nev, right? Even your romance. I think your romance options in this game. I'm not sure how different is it, because in my first playthrough I romanced Nev. So sh- her character, she's also quite of like she's a flirt, right? When you start romancing her, she's quite a flirt. She doesn't say things straight direct. She says things very indirectly. You know, she's always like she has a flirty tone and blah 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 stuff like that. But all of a sudden, like in towards the end, she's like, she becomes like a damsel in distress type person. She's like, oh, I love you, blah blah blah, and then she tends to become cringy towards the end, right? Like I don't get it. Like I'm not sure like why these dialogue options like are so poorly written at times. I'm not sure if it's the same for the other characters. Like I haven't seen their romance options yet, so I'm assuming maybe it might be the same, maybe not. I'm not sure, but like the character changes, right? And yeah, so this is like poor writing, I would say. because the entire dialogue, this thing, it feels like HR has been looking through all the dialogue options, and they like either they say okay or not, or whatever it is you need to say, right? It's like the entire thing got streamlined through HR. So what else can we oh yeah, so one of the nice things about this game had some really good plots, right? Sure, the entire thing with the god pantheon stuff, the relationship between the elven gods and the old winter gods, them being one and the same, the revelation about that, the revelation about the titans, the dwarves, the lore behind that, the lore behind the necromancers. These are interesting plots, right? Now, big spoiler, right? Um, Varric, who we saw kind of like get stabbed at the beginning of the game, we thought he died at some, and but ends up he ends up being alive. A lot of your companions talked to him as well, so we assumed he was alive. He was narrating the majority story, but towards the end, it gets revealed that hey, he died. He was dead all along. It was just in our mind. Solus was playing tricks on our mind, right? So Varric was dead all along. That was, I mean, you had to give credit where it's due. That was an amazing plot. I mean, dude, my mind got blown away. I was like, oh shit, Varric is actually dead. So I mean, yeah, plus points there. I mean, they had some good story writing options, right? They wrote some good plots, right? Varric's death, some of the Elven God pantheons stuff, then the origin of the Darkspawn. So, like, it was all good, right? So, what I felt is like the Veilguard should have been, the Veilguard essentially should have been the, what do you call it? Should have been the last game of the series is what I felt the way it went, because the first game started with the Fifth Blight, then the second game was about the mages, the whale, and you kind of get a merge between the two plots in the in the third game, and the fourth game kind of like brings it full circle, right? The origin of the Darkspawn, it was created by the Elven gods, why the whale was created, what was the relationship with Fenrihel, Mythal in all of this. So it pretty much came in full circle, right? It was really good to see a lot of these things coming in full circle. Uh, so I felt like this game should have been the end, but in the post-credit scene, end credits, yeah, post-credit scene, they show that there seems to be another faction working behind the scenes, pulling strings on all the events in all the games so far. So it seems like we're gonna end up getting another game. So yeah, I felt like this would have been a satisfactory ending to an extent for Dragon Age in general. But yeah, it is what it is. Uh, so hopefully they don't try to do too much. I mean, like 4 games is fine. Okay, fifth game. I hope they don't try to like push more and then end up making a very lame story in the end. That's what I'm worried. So the story in this is good. The idea they had, right? Execution was a little bit, because I felt like Elganon and Gillian, the two main antagonists, the two main elven gods, they had a pantheon, right? So one issue is like they did not reveal the rest of the gods. I think they revealed one in Belara's side quest, but that was it, right? Mythal was one, but not the rest. I think there were like maybe three more or two more. Like I'm not sure what happened to them. So I felt like maybe they should have given a little bit more for the players to, so that folks could learn about the rest of the Elven Pantheon as well. I don't know if they did it because of like I don't know length issues or something like that. They didn't want to make the game too long, or they didn't want to run into an issue where they had to break the game into two parts or something like that. But I mean, dude, like I'm down for them to spending time on on story, right? I'm okay with the two protagonists, like sorry, the two antagonists. I saw good plot. I mean, like the plot was good, okay, good there. Um, it's just that I felt like they should have not revealed the two of them so early on. I felt like they came on screen way too early. I feel like because they got hyped up for the entire for a small portion of the game they got hyped up, and then they got revealed, and then the hype kind of like died out, and they kind of like left like a weird situation where like you kind of like don't like you know what to expect now, so you're not going to be surprised anymore, something like that. So I feel like they like because like it was not even the halfway point into the game. I felt like it was way too early. They revealed the gods and their big plan, and so they didn't exactly have the very plot twist was the best by far. So they saved that one for a good chunk of time. So that was good. Um, so yeah, the endings, there's no big difference between each of the endings. So the what happens is like I feel like all the endings are pretty much the same. It's just that the outcomes for the characters are different, but yeah, the endings are pretty much the same. I don't think there's a bad ending in the game, unless you consider like your characters dying as bad. So yeah, I guess that could be classified. But I think it's more or less a good ending overall for each of the endings. Like everyone like the world gets saved pretty much. So I don't know if, but I think no, I think that's unfair to say, because I think because for continuity's sake, if they choose to do that, I think the ending needs to be more or less good. So I guess we can't exactly say that. So yeah, I mean that's all I can talk about. Like that's what I've experienced. Like those are my opinions. Those are my experiences playing this game. Because in all, I can say is like I was enjoying it. Then I wasn't enjoying it. I was enjoying it again. Then I wasn't enjoying it again. That's like it's like a dip in interest, like a rise in interest and then a dip in interest. So that's what the game felt like to me. And yeah, the forced inclusion, the diversity stuff was like not necessarily needed. Kind of like making dialogue options more modern-esque, like um, which made no sense. So yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, that's that Dragon Age, the Veilguard. So hopefully, what I can hope for now is like this kind of feedback, just me, but I'm guessing the majority of people feel the same, especially about the forced inclusion stuff, and then yeah, some of the other issues as well. So I hope like this becomes well known. I hope, hopefully, I'm not sure, like I don't know what to expect, but if we are to get a fifth Dragon Age game, which we will get, because given the ending, given the post-credit scene, we will get a fifth Dragon Age game. Hopefully they can address a lot of these issues. So yeah, we'll just have to see till then. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Hopefully you guys enjoy playing Dragon Age Veilguard as well. If you have played, or if you're about to pick it up, I hope you guys enjoy to whatever extent it is that you can enjoy. Hopefully this video is helpful to some people. But yeah, if you guys want to, do share your thoughts and opinions as well. I might be wrong in some things. It's fine. It's just how I feel. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next live stream video. Till next time then. Bye bye.